Okay, cool. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you today. I'm Julia. I am with USDN, running all things national strategies and partnerships, particularly working on federal funding and helping y'all make sense of the landscape and get money into your climate projects and communities to do projects on the ground. So, really excited for this conversation today. But before we jump in, I'm just going to give you a few quick logistics. I invite you, if you can, to turn on your video, to update your name, to include also your jurisdiction or your affiliation and your pronouns, just so we have a sense of where you're coming from and we can address you properly. Feel free to use the chat for questions, either for call logistics. You can message me directly if you're having any issues, or for questions for the speakers, so we can keep track of that as we're going. And like I said, this will be posted on usdn.org along with the slides, other follow-up materials, links, etc. So don't worry about that. We'll get all of that material to you after the call. And before we jump in, I am going to kick it over to my colleague, Michael, who is going to say a couple of intro words about this series that we're doing. So with that, Michael, take it
Thank,
away.
thank you so much, Julia. It's not in my screenshot yet, but I'm reaching you all today from Ottawa, Canada. And I am part of this series because of the support of the European Union, actually. We are very fortunate that the European Union has been a long supporter of the Global Covenant of Mayors and Energy, not only in Canada and in the United States, but all throughout the Americas, as well as around the world. The EU is a strong supporter of local government action. There's a strong belief within the EU that the way to address climate change is by supporting and working directly with individuals such as yourselves, with municipalities and towns such as yours, to really mitigate and adapt to climate change. We're lucky that we've got two cities on this call who we will be hearing from Atlanta and from Lyon Métropole in France, that are also supported through another EU project, the International Urban Regional Cooperation Initiative. I hope I got that right. And so this is we're here in large part because the EU has says, right, we need to start sharing experiences. We need to start working together at a local level to address climate change. And so I just wanted to make sure that me, as some guy sitting in Canada who is here because the EU is supporting this work, just recognizes that. Normally we'd have someone from the EU mission in Washington, but they're not available today, and so I'm happy to do it. And it's wonderful to be here, Julia, and it's wonderful to see so many people on this call. Let's get to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. And just a heads up for anyone who is coming to the USDN annual meeting, GCoM is also supporting a couple of sessions. There's a lunch and learn, there's some office hours in person for federal funding. There's a session about kind of selling your project idea, so feel free to check those out. And also related to this session, there will be a conversation with GGRF awardees if you're interested in that as an avenue to fund your projects. So just quick annual meeting plug there. It's coming up, oh my gosh, like next week? No, the week after. This is just crazy to me. So on this session, we're really going to dive into how folks are paying for their climate plans and their climate priorities. As Michael said, we've got two amazing speakers from cities. So first, Siham Moluli Gaton. Did I do that
Yeah.
right? Okay. Yay! I do not speak French. I speak Spanish.
Thank
So,
you.
and who is the project manager for ecological transition, budgeting, and gender equality from Metropolitan Lyon. Super excited. We're going to hear from her first. Then we'll have Chandra Farley from, who's the chief sustainability officer with the city of Atlanta. And fun fact, like Michael said, they're both also members of the International Urban and Regional Cooperation Program. In case you're wondering what that is, I did not know about that before this project. You can check that out. And then finally, we've got Martina Granieri, who is the Strategic Consulting Associate with Sustainable Capital Advisors, who's been a partner to Atlanta and many other cities across the U.S., really helping with building a capital stack and a portfolio for financing work. So she'll close it out with sort of an overall view. Each speaker will present. We'll have a few minutes for questions. Please feel free to put questions in the chat as we go or verbalize them at the end. And that's what we're going to do. So before we kick it over to Siham, I want to just take a quick sense of the temperature in the room here and where folks are at. So I'm going to put a couple questions in the chat, and I'd love for you to just quick put in what comes to you first on this. It doesn't have to be beautifully written. It doesn't even have to all be spelled correctly. So first question is, one of my biggest challenges when it comes to financing my climate work is one of the biggest challenges you have when it comes to financing your climate work. Purchasing department. I'm sure you feel free to emoji these if you resonate with what people are putting in the chat. I've heard that many times. Upfront costs, eligibility, yep, competing interests. Yes. Alex, that piece we're going to talk about a lot today. How are we just integrating this into the budget in the first place? Budget processes, bond ratings. Yes. Awesome. Okay, next question. Is there one opportunity I'm hoping to pursue is there anything that you feel like is promising right now? GGRF, Silver, yep. Elective pay, EECBG, yep. I hear you, Tatiana. That's totally legit. Good election results. Yeah. It's also coming up around the corner. Okay, and then last piece, I'd really love to hear how other cities are. If there's any in particular piece that you're hoping to hear about, whether that's today or on a future session that we put together. Yeah, Bridge Fund, that's something that we've got top of mind. I know a lot of DGRF awardees are thinking about that as well as those other folks. Working with multi-departmental budgets, the administrative work, yes. Gap funding, integrating climate into budgeting. We're going to talk about that. Green revolving fund, yes. Awesome. I feel like I could just plan a year of programming and activity based on the chat from the first 5 minutes here. This is awesome. All right. Well, we are going to definitely touch on some of these pieces today. And if there are, as we go, like, as I said, please put questions in the chat. And at the end, too, if there's things where you're like, man, USDN, would you guys please get people together to do X or do another session on Y? Or I really need TA on Z. Like, please feel free to put direct requests like that in the chat, too. I'll log all of those. We're planning all of our strategy and stuff for, next year and the year after. So please don't hesitate to make direct requests of us as well. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Siham to kick us off. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much giving me this opportunity, and excuse my English. I try to be very, very clear. Sometimes very simple, just to make sure my idea is clear. So do not hesitate to ask me the questions about what I'm going to show you. Do you hear me good?
We hear you great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I will share with you our experience in climate budgeting. Just up, partager l'audio. Up. It is good?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. Diaporama, up. Okay. So Lyon Metropole is a city, no, it's a 58 cities and 4 billion budget and green elected officers. So I try to make simple my words. We are working about a new way to make green budgeting. That is strategic impact budgeting, which is a methodological framework for investment impact analysis. And the objective for us is to objectivize ecological impact to guide strategy. Excuse my mistakes. I did my best if something is not good on the slides. Measuring the ESG performance for local authorities, global coherence and impact causality. For us, it was very, very important to make a framework assessment system based on impact translator to make direct correlation between all the resources committed by the local authorities and its government environmental commitments to demonstrate the consistency level between the intentions and the achievements. We are working on, in two contexts, the European context and the French context. The French context is by law, the finance bill make compulsory, obligatory for all the local authorities, more than 3,500 inhabitants, to make green appendix starting from 2055 to make how the investment expenses are contributing negatively or positively to all part of environment objectives set by the European taxonomy. And the European context concerning our companies in Europe with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which aims to harmonize the corporate sustainability reporting with the data available in good quality, environmental high quality, to be published and to be auditable since the 1st of January of 2024. It's about 500,000 of companies with which we work who can come to us asking for environmental data about waste and about green issues. So this matter of green budgeting is between these two contexts, national and European. For us, we are in the aim to make our green budgeting, like OECD says, about strengthening environmental consideration in our assessment tools concerning the budget. So we have created a framework for evaluating and analyzing investment to make sure that our budget is a marker of our impact on ecological transition in our responsibility on our land, on our land, territory, or area. To ensure that Lyon Metropole's public policies and budgetary orientations are aligned with the metropole's ecological transition strategy. So it's in a strategic way we did this green budgeting. Our elected officer in charge of finance asked us for important points. A multi-criteria analysis, so not only climate mitigation or climate adaptation, but also biodiversity, impact on water, impact on pollutions, and other impacts I will show you afterward. He needs decision support, not only colors on figures. He needs something to ask in case of A and B, what is the best for environment in this multi-criteria analysis. And he needs something which is progressive, iterative deployment with our departments, which are now sometimes far from this consideration. So we have to take them off progressively, but in the right direction, in a collaborative approach. It's not possible that only one person in the finance department, which is in charge of all these assessment tools and results, everybody, every colleague, every person in working on this, on a public policy, is concerned and have to collaborate in this way. That is the 4 points set by our political elected officer. And how how can we aim to be aligned? How can we say that 1 euro is aligned with what? With the taxonomy of Europe, with the national strategic for lowering carbon emissions, with the sustainable growth, which is for the whole planet, which reference, which framework, excuse me, which guide, which way of reading this impact are we concerned with? We set here the idea that if we are in an assessment logic, we have to be aligned with our own strategy of our own public policies. So the public policy strategies have been, we have analyzed them to make an overview of what is green of all what we do. Otherwise, not only for green issues. I hope I'm clear. So what we do for agriculture, what we do for our for buses and mobility, what we do for logement, to make people in the buildings.
Accommodation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for accommodation. And all these policy strategic plans, we make a big framework overview to set the main orientation in mitigation, in adaptation, in waste, for pollution, for biodiversity, and to construct the major green analysis framework and sub-axis, which set on our responsibility in our area, which is not the responsibility of the cities in the metropole, which is not for the other local government or the state or Europe. What we have to do and how we can green it and how we can read it. And we make this with the European framework to be articulated. So the climate change medication, we added energy sobriety, combating climate change, but we add energy sobriety. Climate change adaptation doesn't change. The restoration and protection of biodiversity and water and sustainable use of water and pollution prevention and control become preserving ecosystems integrity, which is a whole objective, a goal, which is more global. Transition to a circular economy was considered as capitalistic. So we had to speak about sobriety and circularity of resources and materials. As I said, water and pollution was added in the 4 first goals. And we add a very, very important goal, which is not visible in the taxonomy of Europe, neither in the growth, global growth, the sustainable growth, not global growth, les développement durable, sustainable development, which is raising awareness and supporting change. It concerns local governments in a very important way, because we can make the best building for mitigation if people are heating to 22 Celsius degrees and not 19. It will not lower the emissions of of the gas. I hope you understand me. If we have the cycling way and it's got the ecological corridors and nobody is going on this cycling way, it's not a good idea. So we have to combine awareness and sporting change to make the actions to reach the first goals, the climate goals, more efficient. And it's really, really important. And it's in our responsibility with companies, with all the actors, not actors, all the entities on our area. So this is our local taxonomy and how it's set with our strategies about accommodation, about climate mitigation, about nature plans with the permeable city, with all the other policies which became green, and all the goals. And we ask our colleagues to say not if they are good or not good for this euro spent, green or not green. We say if we are in an improvement logic, if the project contribute to achieving the ecological transition objective, if it had a positive impact, or if it's stabilization, the project does not change the existing situation, which is not neutral. We have a stabilization impact or degradation. Perhaps if we have to make people in accommodation, it's inevitable or sometimes incompressible negative impact. And that's what we have to monitor, lowering the degradation impact and putting on the improvement expenditure. Or if we are not concerned, the project, the line, it's not in the framework of analysis. So each project is assessed, we put question about the 23 lines we see here. So 5, 10, and 5 axes, 10 sub-axes, and 23. And we have 1 green or orange or red on each line. And we assess these projects by asking questions, precise questions, contextualization, to say if this project is good of each of the 23 goals. So planting outdoors, for example, for adaptation, we measure clearly the tree cover evolution before and after, and we say that is improvement point if it's bigger, it's more in percentage, and we say what is the case in this project precisely in its context. We are working with 3 poles, 3 multi-delegation committee expert, finance management control, where I am, and the operational departments which have its own project expertise, which integrate the ecological expertise in his own project. So we are supported by our technical and scientific expertise from our colleagues who works in the expert committee. And we are only on method and to lead the process, to put the budget segmentation, just as the framework of the OECD have said, and to produce the output. So what is the output? We have marks excuse me, broke down this quotation, we have just the percentage of the number of the green points, for each 23 goals. And this percentage is applied directly on the amount. We can see on each goal we have worked, and on each word we have to progress. And we can say it by this scheme to make the best points of this project. So just rehabilitation of sewer pipes, it's not, it's just something we do every year. But this way, in this time, after the green budgeting, we have put the soil sealing, rainwater disconnection, revegetation, pedagogical actions, communication. But we can improve the choice of material, which is yellow. So it can be improved if biosourced. It can be improved with specific sorting and reuse of materials, soil and sand of this operation. And water consumption, it can be improved with water-saving practices. And what is considered as incompressible part is the emissions due to the work site, and it could be reduced if the trenchless work site, the work site is without making the trench, and it costs. So that is green budgeting in our philosophy. And to say in the multiple goals, environmental goals, how the project is doing improvement or harm on each one, and to add the raising awareness and the good use to make these goals achieved. I don't know.
We have a few questions. Can I ask? Can I jump in and ask it? Because there's a few questions in the chat.
I finished. It's good.
No, this is awesome, and I will send this presentation out so you guys can dig into this too. And then I want to also move to Atlanta, but there were a couple questions. First was around energy sobriety, and I had found a definition online, but I want to ask you, what is the definition of energy sobriety?
Yeah.
Online it said people reducing, like voluntarily reducing energy use, but it would be great to hear from you directly.
Yeah, the energy transition is to reduce the final energy consumption and to increase the share of renewable energy. That is, the sobriety is to lower the need of energy consumption. That's how we.
And then there's a question, does incompressible mean that emissions cannot be reduced at this time?
Yes. Incompressible, that is that the choice is not simple to apply. So we have to put people on this inhabitants. We have, it's just if we have to wear other glasses, the glasses of the need. The green expenditure, it's the expenditure which does not exist, you know, that is the incompressible. So the degradation expenditure can be, hello, are you here?
Yeah,
excuse me. It seems that it's inevitable, so we have to assume to take it and to try to lower the degradation, but we cannot eliminate at all, because it's our responsibility on the area with the public policy. By the other hand, I don't know if I'm clear.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. I know there are a couple other questions in the chat, and Siam, if you want to take a minute to look at those and respond, that would be awesome. I want to shift to Chandra from Atlanta and hear about how you all are also pursuing this more whole of government approach to sustainability and climate. Thank you so much, Siham.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. That was very informative. Not sure what's going on with there it goes, video there. So again, thank you to USDN for inviting me to this conversation today. I was definitely nodding my head vigorously to all of the comments in the chat, to the answers to the first question. I identify with many of those for sure, from understanding the municipal budget process. I come from advocacy. I come from community-based organization work. This is my first foray into a local government position, but have been in partnership with local government in those previous roles. I spent 8 years working at South Base Energy Institute, which is a nonprofit technical assistance organization based in Atlanta. And we were always a technical assistance partner to the city on implementing various programs like the Better Buildings Challenge. I worked at a racial equity organization based in Atlanta, focused on energy justice and coalition building. And we were a community-based organization partner to the city, specifically with the mayor's office of sustainability. So now, as the chief sustainability officer leading the mayor's office of sustainability and resilience, I certainly again just identify with a lot of what was mentioned. So I'm going to share screen here with some slides. How's that? Does everybody see my screen? I can't see the chat or anything.
Looks great.
Awesome. So again, Chief Sustainability Officer for City of Atlanta. I lead the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience. Atlanta is still known as the city in the forest, and that presents many opportunities and challenges, often related to our goals. But I always like this view of our beautiful city, but also its nature. Our mayor, Andre Dickens, give him a lot of credit. He is an engineer by trade. He understands the science. He's been very supportive of our sustainability efforts, is very focused in on our clean energy goals, as our clean energy plan to transition Atlanta to 100% clean energy by 2035 was supported by him and adopted while he was serving as a city council member for 2 terms, 8 years before he became our mayor. And I always like to share his vision for the city of Atlanta, because for me, it is a vision of environmental justice. When we talk, you'd be hard pressed to find a community-based organization or an energy justice, environmental justice organization, health equity organization, you name it, that isn't talking about safe, healthy, connected neighborhoods, talking about engaging our residents in participating in government and our decision making, always with a focus on making sure we're calling our youth in to co-design with us, to lead us in solutions. And so really lean on that. And also for City of Atlanta, the way that we are set up, we're a strong mayor form of government. So the mayor is essentially the CEO of the city, as the chief sustainability officer, a position that he put back on the mayor's cabinet, where I am in partnership with all of our commissioners of our operating departments, which is critically important, because when we think about the charter for our office, the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience, something that was reaffirmed by this mayor after I started in this role. I've been in this role for just over 2 years. That we have environmental justice in our charter now, and this is critically important as we talk about an office leading science-based analysis, but informed by the community. Those are really our guiding principles. And now when we talk about initiatives and how we're going to meet our clean energy goals, how we are going to meet our emissions reductions goals, any of the goals that I will talk about, being able to point to this and say, well, we commit to having these decisions informed by the community. We commit to rooting these decisions in environmental justice. So it's a very small thing, but when you're able to drop that in a whereas clause for a resolution, that we certainly domestic municipal governments can be familiar with, it becomes really important to be able to root your conversation in this. So as we move towards our goals at the city of Atlanta, I have to be an advocate. So I always talk about, me and my background coming from advocacy, consider myself an activist at heart. I have to be an advocate in City Hall. I am the expert on sustainability and climate resilience. My team, we are the experts on sustainability and climate resilience. And I have to advocate. I have to coalition build with employees in other departments who are very committed to driving sustainability in parks and recreation, in Department of Transportation, in Department of City Planning, at the airport. So if you've ever flown into City of Atlanta, Hartsfield Jackson, that is the City of Atlanta Department of Aviation. It is essentially a city in itself, and we have a growing sustainability team at the airport that we work directly with. And so through that advocating, we have to be learning. My team has to be learning, and you'll hear from Matina, Sustainable Capital Advisors, who we've been fortunate to work with through some of that advocacy and learning together with our Department of Finance, which is a critical partner as we talk about innovation and sustainable financing, getting into the weeds of municipal budgeting and the municipal budgeting process as we look towards introducing things like a climate budget for the city of Atlanta for the first time. So again, that rooting in advocacy, that understanding of coalition building, that understanding of calling people in for information sessions where my office has hosted 3 at this stage over the last year, sustainability innovation labs, where we are calling in those who are interested across city employees, every office, every department, to come and learn with us and understand what their roles are in making sure the city can achieve these very ambitious goals that we are still updating and tweaking in conversation. And I think what's important to note about our clean energy goals is that they are not just municipal goals, they are community-wide goals. So very, very ambitious. So we have to learn and teach as an office internally, and we have to present opportunities for innovation in procurement, in fleet services, for things like looking at rubber modified asphalt and the potential to help reduce our urban heat island effect in the city, being a part of coalitions like with National League of Cities and their Smart Surfaces Coalition, and looking at opportunities for legislation around cool surfaces or cool roofs or green roofs. And you have to, as we talk about again, going back to some of those pain points, if you will, and things that we have to face working in local governments to help advance our goals. I saw the balance with affordable housing goals, a comment. Our mayor is a housing mayor. He has a very ambitious goal to build or preserve 20,000 units of affordable housing. So as I look at our sustainability and resilience goals for the city, which are his sustainability and climate resilience goals as a mayor, I am also focused on aligning those with his overarching goals. So when we talk about preserving affordable housing, we are talking about reducing energy burden. And so how do we fund that? So in this federal funding moment, we're doing a lot. I know we're all doing a lot, looking at these various opportunities that come out. And again, with that coalition building to make sure that, how can Atlanta be stronger in its applications for some of these federal opportunities? And one of the ways that we have done that is by partnering with what we loosely call our Georgia Coalition of Local Governments. So there's 5 or 6 of us local governments across the state of Georgia that have all adopted 100% clean energy goals. So we formally intervened together in front of our Public Service Commission to advocate for stronger, more innovative programs that are going to help us reach our goals. And on the flip side, advocating and engaging in the rate case to make sure we are being a voice for our constituents who are faced with rising utility costs, rising utility bills. And for a city like Atlanta and a mayor with housing goals, we know that inability to afford utilities with rising rents as a city is a primary driver of displacement. So our Solar for All award is going to help us expand some of our home repair programs, energy burden reduction programs, and then be able to bring people into possibly hosting distributed energy through rooftop solar on their homes and in their communities. So all of that innovation, opportunity, alignment with the mayor's goals presents great opportunity for us to be innovators in how to finance sustainability. How do we finance climate resilience? How do we pay for these very important goals? So the work with Sustainable Capital Advisors has been critically important. In addition to Solar for All, we are looking at that as one component of a comprehensive greenhouse gas reduction fund strategy for the city and our larger metro. So we partner with our economic development agency, Invest Atlanta. They house our CPACE, Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. So we'll be looking at other programs to bring through that organization. And again, I mentioned looking at the potential to bring the city's first climate budget forward in our next fiscal year. So I'll stop there and look forward to hearing more and jumping in the chat to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Chandra. I really appreciate it. And I also just really appreciate the ways that you touch on the importance of the leadership and the organizing that you're doing in the city to build the buy-in, to make the connections, and to move this work forward. So critical. That's often one of the #1 barriers, as we've seen from what folks were talking about in the chat. So with that, I'd love to kick it over to Matina to close us out.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Matina. I'm an associate at Sustainable Capital Advisors. We're a strategic consulting and financial advisory firm dedicated to connecting sustainable infrastructure projects to the necessary capital for implementation. And the focus is really on enabling impactful climate action through effective financing solutions. So we've had, the privilege of collaborating with the City of Atlanta, apologies, I have allergies, and assisting them in navigating this funding moment and financing of their different climate action initiatives. And just on a personal note, I used to work for the City of Philadelphia's Office of Sustainability and was very familiar with USDN back then. So very excited to be back here presenting to you all now. So yeah, I'm, really just going to build off what Chandra was talking about. It's been, particularly rewarding to work in Atlanta because of Chandra's focus on building relationships, and how those relationships have been accelerating all these opportunities for them to explore really innovative funding and financing models. But I'll also bring in some things that we're seeing from some municipalities we're working with outside of Atlanta and across the US, and kind of some common things that we're seeing when it comes to funding and financing climate action projects. So really, we're seeing pretty similar hurdles across the board, all of which you guys put in the chat at the beginning of this presentation. But it's really about the project development pipeline, right? It starts so early with this initial idea and understanding that there is even a problem or goal to address, which you all, are probably well on the way to having already established. But then there's this process of scoping out specific projects. What's their size? What's their impact? Are they even initially feasible? And then that involves all this stakeholder engagement, internal and external, and that often uncovers all these different complications, whether it's legal complications or competing priorities, or your procurement department just doesn't like different financial structures, or there's just so many barriers that each municipality has to navigate. And then once you get through that, then you have to do detailed planning. There's engineering, legal, financial plans. And then you get to the actual financial transaction itself. And that transaction can be a whole effort of blending different sources of capital, tapping into different resources, or exploring an entirely new financial structure that the city hasn't engaged with before. And I don't say all this to, beat, an already hammered point, but just to highlight that there's so many steps before getting to the financial transaction. And what we're seeing that, helps cities get there, whether it's a large, well-supported city like Atlanta, where they have an aligned mayor and political leader, to smaller municipalities that might have limited capacity or they have different political hurdles, is the relationship between sustainability and finance teams. So what we're seeing with that is, this collaboration between those two teams brings together the expertise that's necessary to unlock things that are previously, just non-starters for either department alone. So sustainability usually brings us awareness of, federal funding opportunities that are in the pipeline for climate, or different novel financial structures that are targeted towards clean energy or energy efficiency that maybe finance doesn't come across when they're thinking through, their own priorities. But then finance has this expertise of the structures that work within their particular legal or regulatory environment, how the procurement system works. All these things come together and enable cities to move forward in new ways. And so how, can we see cities start to bridge this relationship? The Inflation Reduction Act, I think, really helped that. We're seeing finance departments knock on the doors of sustainability departments for maybe the first time. So it's even going the other way now. But we know that finance teams are interested in, what's this? I can get 70% of my project costs, in a rebate from the federal government. That's great. But what do I have to do to access that? And what projects are eligible? And what projects do we have in the pipeline? And that's information that a sustainability department will have. And then, there's probably more exploration that needs to be done, but it begins a conversation on what are the hurdles we need to overcome to get there. And then another thing that sustainability departments can do is be curious when talking to their finance teams. Something we see a lot, especially in smaller communities that might not be implementing things like CPACE or PPAs or things like that, is that there can be resistance to new financial structures. So when you're talking to your finance team about, exploring something new, how can you be curious about what are the underlying reasons why they are not interested in exploring it? Is it because they don't have capacity? Is it because they know that it's not legally possible in your jurisdiction? Or is it because they just perceive some sort of risk that you can help them to understand better through continued conversations? And then one last strategy that I'll say is that something that is increasingly important, and the hurricanes that have been happening just really highlight this point, is that there are so many risks coming down the pipeline from climate change that are going to impact cities, on a very human level, but also financially. So there's going to be these immediate expenditures in the aftermath of disasters, but there's also going to be chronic impacts. There's going to be tax-based loss due to repetitive loss properties and things like that. And if you can help to quantify or understand the magnitude of what that financial risk is, it can start a conversation around these larger ticket investment items like a levy or something that might be $1 billion project that a city won't even consider. If you can articulate or start to think through with your financial teams how that might be mitigating future financial loss or risk, it can help to unlock some conversations around strategies like, putting aside budget for grant matches or other, utility rate increase or something like that, to help start to think through funding these, really big investments that will be coming down the pipeline. I know that I'm a little over time, so I'll just end on a resource that Sustainable Capital Advisors has put out this month. We launched a platform recently called the Sustainable Infrastructure Finance Academy that was targeted towards community lenders to help them build their skills around sustainable infrastructure finance, as we expect the GGRF pipeline to kind of come through and potentially overwhelm some teams. But we've expanded it to also include municipalities and local government leaders who are seeking to, use innovative financial tools to move their sustainable infrastructure projects forward. And throughout the month of October, we're doing free events, including an open office hours where you can come and just ask a question that you might have about sustainable infrastructure finance that's very particular to you or your community. So I encourage you to check that out. I'll put the link in the chat, but it's just another free resource to tap into as you guys are all doing the hard work of navigating all this, funding.
Thank you so much, Matina. Yeah, please do put that in the chat. And if anyone has questions for Matina, please pop them in here. And again, if you are coming to the annual meeting, Matina will be there, so you could also find her in person. So thank you so much, everyone. I want to just also put in a quick 2 other resources from our partner at CDP. If you're interested in disclosure, if you're not doing that with CDP, or if you haven't been sharing projects that need funding, they are developing like a pipeline for projects that need funding and sharing those with funders and others. So I want to put the chat in for that. And then they are also hosting a Green Banks webinar in November. So just putting those 2 things in here for you guys to check out as well. As we close, I know a couple of you might have to hop. I would just love to know really quick to close us out in the chat, after you've heard these awesome presentations, what's something you'd really love to hear more about or dig into? Is there anything super alive for you right now at the end of this? Tatiana, that is a very on point question right now. I think we could have a whole series on that. Yeah, I'll share that with Brianne and Amber and folks. Is it Dana? Am I saying your name right?
Yes.
Cool. Just want to make sure. Yes. Okay, awesome. Communicating climate action funding needs with leadership. Yes. All right, second on that. And that can also include other things you want USDN to offer. Feel free to put those in the chat as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you again to all of our amazing speakers. I really appreciate the time and energy that you took to come and share your work with everyone and being available. Siham, definitely send me your deck immediately. I have multiple requests for that. So, and maybe we can get Michael to finish translating any pieces. I'll ask him about that. So you don't have to worry about that. Thank you. Thank you, Chandra. Thank you, Martina. So appreciate it. Again, I'll share everything after. If you all have follow-up questions, let me know. And with that, have a great rest of your week and weekend.
Thank you. Have a
Take
good
care,
time.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Goodbye.